It's 1932, and the world is rapidly changing. Just about a decade ago, a fascist leader known as Benito Mussolini was sworn in as the new dictator of Italy. Now, a group in Germany known as the Nazi Party has come to power, with Adolf Hitler being the leader. Meanwhile, in Asia, Japan is looking to rapidly expand and conquer more territories to expand their empire. All three of these nations have many things in common. They all want to rapidly expand and take over more stuff. They all have extremist political beliefs. They are all at least partially racist. But most importantly, all three of these nations feel hatred towards a certain grouping of nations, the Allies. In the blue, we have highlighted the Allied nations, which looks like a lot, but there are really only four. These four nations being the United Kingdom, France, Portugal, and Poland. Poland only really joined the Allies for protection against Germany. And they did good because Germany is looking to expand. In 1935, Germany decides to Anschluss Austria. This goes against the Treaty of Versailles, so of course the Allies don't like this very much. But you want to know what they also don't like the thought of? War. And they don't want to risk war with Germany by simply telling them, no, you can't do that. Even though Germany was just as unready for war as the Allies were. In fact, they're probably even less ready. Well, I won't say that because they just spent the last 3 years gearing up for a war with the Allies, so yeah. Then they start making demands on Czechoslovakia, demanding demanding mostly the Sudetenland. The Allies are going to try to tell Germany no, but Germany essentially says, all right, look, if we get the Sudetenland, we'll stop there. The Allies agree to this. Then just days later, all of Czechoslovakia becomes under German control, and the Allies did absolutely nothing to stop it. Good going. But let's jump the pond over here for a minute, and let's go look at the United States. In 1932, the United States held an election in which the two candidates, Herbert Hoover and Franklin D. Roosevelt, ran against each other. Roosevelt obviously looking like the favorite to win. However, unfortunately, this would not be the case. Why? Simply put, Roosevelt was assassinated before he could ever be elected as President of the United States. This outrages literally everybody. Left, right, in the middle, independent, everyone. Everyone is mad about this. They're especially mad because some believe that Herbert Hoover himself had something to do with this assassination, which doesn't help him one bit. So enough falsified, very incriminating evidence gets brought to the U.S. Supreme Court that it was indeed Herbert Hoover who carried out the assassination of Franklin D. Roosevelt. Not himself, but he orchestrated it. U.S. Supreme Court decides that, yes, in fact, it was Herbert Hoover, and he is, 1, impeached and kicked out of office, and 2, imprisoned, likely to never see the light of day again. Well, that's all cool and dandy, but now the United States lacks strong leadership, which they're going to need in the next few years. It is unclear who the next president of the United States will be, most likely the VP of Herbert Hoover, but let's have an interesting scenario play out. Let's assume for a second that in 1932, the VP of Herbert Hoover gets elected. That's all fun and dandy. This guy's not a very strong leader, though. So, in 1936, another election happens, and a very peculiar guy gets elected. This guy being Charles Lindbergh. And the neat thing about Lindbergh is that he is strong isolationist. He will not get involved in World War II in any way, shape, or fashion, not on the side of the Allies, not on the side of the Axis, unless provoked. That also means that they will not sell weapons to the Allies during World War II at the cheap. They'll have to pay normal price. This also means that they will continue to sell goods to the Axis during the war, except for maybe Japan. So now that we know that the US won't be doing anything, let's go back to Europe. It's September 1st, 1939, and Germany has just invaded and occupied all of Poland, leading to the Allies to declare war on Germany. But unlike in the real timeline, Hitler actually predicted the Allies' incompetence, meaning he knew that however long he took to defeat Poland, it wouldn't matter because the Allies weren't going to do. And he was right, as the Allies mostly maintained defensive positions along Alsace-Lorraine because they anticipated that the Germans would launch the first attack against France. But it seems like Germany is doing far from that. In fact, they're trying to keep the war as far away from France or Germany as they possibly can, or at least that's what Chamberlain thought. In early 1940, we see the UK attempt to mine the waters around Norway to stop Sweden from exporting iron ore through Norway to Germany. Germany decides that, well, screw this, they're going to invade Denmark and Norway, occupy both countries. Now there's no problem with the iron trade. And I never got this. Why couldn't Sweden just, instead of having to do this, why couldn't they just... Simple. The Germans also did not need Soviet help to defeat Poland, meaning that Germany gets all of it. Uh-oh, that's not good. Germany has just annexed all of their occupied lands, as well as signed an official alliance with Italy. Well, let's look at the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union, well, they're still in disarray. They never really recovered from Stalin's Red Purges, massive famines near the Ukraine area, revolts in, Ukraine and the Baltics, and overall just poor leadership. Soviets, in short, aren't doing the best as a country. Germany's going to exploit that later. It also doesn't help their story that they just got done getting their arse whooped by Finland, and that not even little old Romania gave in to their demands. And the Soviets were in no position to fight Romania either after, Finland happened. They were even unsuccessful in their invasion of Iran. Bro. So, in short, the Soviet army just doesn't work at the moment. And in other news, Germany and Italy are about to go on the offensive. So this plays out pretty much the same way it did in our timeline. Germans blitzkrieg through the Benelux, encircle a massive French army at Dunkirk. However, at this time, they also destroy the British forces in Dunkirk as well, because there's no evacuation, because Hitler strategically blockaded that area of Dunkirk before moving in and eliminating the soldiers. Probably the smartest thing he could have done. And then from there, France just fell. And with the fall of France, all of their colonies fall as well. They eliminate any straggler colonies over here, as well as over here, and they give the Dutch East Indies and French Indochina to Japan. The British don't like that very much, and Japan says, take it up with the Navy. Japan decides that instead of surrendering the Dutch East Indies to the British, no. They will instead launch attacks on British Malaya, British Borneo, Bismarck, Australia, and even British India and Myanmar. After these attacks, Britain formally declares war on Japan, and China formally declares war on Germany and Italy, making this now effectively a world war. But let's focus in on Britain for a second. They are left in disarray. The army is essentially worthless, except for the armies fighting in their colonial holdings. The Air Force is slightly better than pathetic, but still no match for the German Luftwaffe. The Navy is Britain's only saving grace right now, and that can still very easily be crushed by the Japanese. So what am I hinting at? That an invasion of mainland Britain is possible, and Hitler's going to take that chance. The attack day is set for August 12th, 1940. The attack will come in 3 main divisions. Army Group 1 will be trying to land from Dutch holdings, German holdings in the Netherlands. They'll be attempting to land on British Sussex. I think that's what this area is called. South Group will be attempting to land on southern England from Dunkirk and Normandy. Third Army Group will be attempting to land on Cornwall from French Brittany. The attack happens, and the UK falls. Ireland joins the Axis. Sweden and Finland declare full loyalty to the German Reich. Same story with a lot of these guys. With no mother nation to protect these colonies, they simply just fall to Japanese rule, and in Africa to either German or Italian rule, with the exception of a few Middle Eastern colonies. Fast forwarding a few years, and everything is looking great for the Axis. They've taken full control over all Allied colonies and land possessions, including the Allied nations themselves. Now, the Axis are looking like they are on top of the world. But they still have 2 tests left in their way. The Soviet Union, which won't be that much of a test, and the United States of America. Now, fortunately for the world, Charles Lindbergh, he was only president for one term. And in 1940, they elected a new leader. This leader being Harry S. Truman. And Truman wanted to see the total destruction of the Axis nations. However, these were simply fever dreams. He could never hope of actually defeating the Axis, especially with even though the United States is one of the most powerful countries in the world and still holds the strongest economy, they can still not hope to challenge the Axis militarily at all. So the US is just slowly biding their time. But the Axis don't do slow. Nah, they be Sanic over here. Fast forwarding a few years, and almost all of the old world has come under the control of the Axis nations, with the exception of the Philippines because they are controlled by the United States. Still though, the United States is done waiting. The Americas declares war on the three Axis nations. However, the Axis was ready for this. In fact, they had an invasion planned for the Americas that would have taken place just 2 months later. So they were ready for this. But they were ready for this war, even though these countries in the Americas weren't fully ready yet. So I think you know what's going to happen next. Fast forwarding to the beginning of 1944, and yeah, it's not good at all. The United States is the only free nation on the world left, but they are soon to be invaded by Nazi Germany. We don't care about Alaska, they just get occupied. But the main German army groups. Army Group 1 is going to be coming from the New England area with the goal of capturing cities such as Boston, New York, Philadelphia, DC if we get the chance. Army Group 2nd is going to be trying to attack from the Great Lakes area with the goal of capturing cities such as Detroit, Minneapolis, and Indianapolis, and Chicago. A naval attack from Florida will be focused on taking cities such as Tallahassee and Miami, as well as maybe Montgomery and New Orleans if we get there. Army Group 4 is going to be attempting to launch an attack from the southern border with the aim of capturing Houston, Austin, and Phoenix, and maybe even LA and San Diego. Maybe even Las Vegas, we'll see. Army Group 5 will be attacking from the British Columbia area with the sole goal of capturing Seattle. With the invasion planned in mind, let's see how the United States squares up against the strongest nation on the planet. Yeah, that didn't last long. And as scary as this may seem, the Axis now completely controls the world. Now these, of course, will not be the final borders of the Axis. There will be some releasing of nations, there will be some borders switching around and doing things, but all we care about is the fact that the Western nations, known as the Allies, have fallen, and now comes a new wave, an era of the world simply known as Reichworld.